Majestix podcast. My name is Chase, and today I got my co-host, as always, Patrick.
What's up?
All right, and we also have the man who's behind the player power rankings, and the man who raises world champions in Heroclix, Will Gordon.
Also known as the creator of Paris.
The creator of Paris.
Co-creator.
Oh man. All right. So we just jump right in there, man. Since you are the rankings guy, and you have been for the site, and now there's like an actual poll, I guess, where I'm one of like the 20 people that submit the votes, kind of like how they do the college football rankings. That's how Lane put it. And then each one is so they rank you, the points are assigned 15 for first and then 1 for 15th, and then he just tallies it up. And he actually put up the rankings for the first I guess the first edition on the Clixed Off. And I just, we want to know what you think, Will.
I actually just saw it for the first time today, a little while ago. I'd heard that he had put that poll up a week or so ago. Honestly, the 15 names, I mean, they're all good players. I think that the top 10 is very similar to the last list that I put out. Just the order is a little different. I think Tom made his list, which I was telling you guys just before we started that he should have been on my list. I wasn't real familiar with his game. I know he had won the Canada Cup a few months back, but I really wasn't familiar with him. But from what I saw of the stream games, he was very impressive. I liked his build, I liked his positioning, I liked his timing, and I think that he definitely should have been on my list. But other than that, I think the names are very similar. The order's a little different, but...
Well, let's go over just really quick for those listening, just to recap. I'll go over real quick the top 15, and we'll just go from there.
Sure.
Daniel Powell, number 1. PJ Boland, number 2. Isaac Berkovitz is 3. Easton Brock, 4. Tom Kerr, 5. Lane Miller, 6. George Masu, 7. Dustin Cedars, 8. Matt Grichinos, 9. Adam Friedman, 10. Ed Arnold Berkovitz, 11. Tyler Spees, 12. Scott Crampton, 13. Kenji Kaneshiro, 14. And Jay Major, 15. So let's just start real on the top. Do you agree with the number 1 ranking?
I think it's hard to not say that Dan is the man to beat right now in the game. I mean, his results have been consistent. He's won big tournaments back to back. I think that it's hard to keep him out of that number 1 spot right now. If you ask me if I would take him against the field, I'm not there yet. I mean, I understand him being ranked number 1, he will all likelihood be number 1 on my next list coming up as well. It's hard to argue the guy's results. He's had 2 years now of a nice run. But again, there are too many other good players out there for me to say that he would be a favorite over the field at this point for whatever that's worth.
Anybody over the field though?
Yeah. Who would? If you had to pick one? Who?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I still think Easton is due. I think Easton is due. I had him number 1 on my list for 3 or 4 times. Big tournaments, and he would get second, get third, get fourth. But I think the guy's due.
At what point do you dump Clayton Kershaw? All right. At what point?
Yeah, I just think it's inevitability that he's going to get one of these days, man. But he.
I've seen that for Clayton Kershaw too, man.
Yeah, he's bridesmaid. He's been bridesmaid for years now. But that's the thing about HeroClix. It's not. I don't think you can have enough talent to just win tournaments just because you're that good. I think that anybody that's won big events will say that they've had luck, that went in their favor. And and there right now, especially the way the meta is, I think that there are builds that if you sit down against a competent player and their build ABCs against your build, it's going to be a really tough matchup. And I think you could be technically a far superior player, but if you hit that matchup, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. And I think there's always been that rock, paper, scissors element to our game. But I think right now that factor is as big as it's ever been. So.
Well, I mean, like you said, anytime you get that far, you have to have some luck. All right, it has to, some rolls have to go your way. And, look at the last match between Tom and Daniel. Like, if Tom gets mapped, that might have been. There's a really it goes heavily in Tom's favor. I feel like.
Right. Yeah,
and I think basically Dan had to hit an 8 twice at the end. Was the deciding thing that got him the win at the end. I think he had to hit that 8 twice, which is 40% roll twice, back to back. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, on the other side too, Tom needed like 3 8s just to get to the finals.
Yeah,
or the top 4. Sorry. So
but I think
he killed a lot of colossals with this.
But when Howard won Worlds last year, his shape change rolls were off the chart. He had symbiote on his guy, and he was rolling. He was hitting that shape change was saving him time after time after time. Not to take anything away from his win, but that symbiote was the MVP of his team.
Yeah, for sure. If okay, of the list, who's so Daniel's number 1, right? Because of just. I
don't know how you can. I don't think you can.
The results, right? But Will, who, talent-wise, just on the talent skill that you've seen on board, team building, whatever mental, whatever. Who do you think's of this would be number 1 if we went straight talent skill?
As far as players that are active as of right now, we're talking about?
I guess from the list here.
Yeah, I like. To me, the players that I've seen that I would put on the short list of not just results, but time and time again, I've seen them where their positioning is perfect. They're always in the right square. They're not one square off from where they should be. They're always where they should be. They're pulling things out that you're not seeing until they start to do it. You're like, oh, is he going? Oh, and then you see it. What I mean? I would say. George Masu, I would say Adam Friedman, I would say Easton, I would say Kenji actually is I think a really fantastic player, but all of those players and that's I don't want to take anything away from these guys that win. I'll say guys like Lane Miller and Matt Griciones. For 2 years now, their results have been, unquestionable credentials. I think that they probably combined, they probably won 20 events in the last 2 years. And Matt, every time Matt shows up, he's top 8, he's top 4, he's top 2, and he's getting there. But with some of those guys, honestly, and I haven't watched all of their games. I haven't seen every game they played by any means, but there are players that win like that I just don't see when I watch them play. I don't see them pulling things out of the hat that in the moment I didn't see coming. You know what I mean? That's and I see them. Just a little off sometimes, just a little off in their positioning where, if they had got to this square the last time they moved, then they'd be in position to call in and be able to target over here, but they're just off from where they need to be. And there are guys like, Tim Bold, who I guess isn't active anymore, but that was another guy whose positioning was just impeccable. Every time I watched him play, every time I played against him, it was always just precise positioning where it just seemed to be a level deeper, a level higher. And again, I understand it's subjective and that's my opinion, but that's what I've seen.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying on I guess for me it would players like Matt and Lane and I guess I don't even know if you call them grinders that get in, but and I guess to a lesser extent Tyler and Jay, but
those are the two players I'm the least familiar with. Honestly, I've seen Tyler play once on at the Rock Cup. I saw one of his matches on stream, and the majors. I don't really know. I've seen them around tournaments, but I don't really know their games. So that's just, honestly, I'm limited in my knowledge about those guys.
I think part of, well, to continue on saying, I feel like they have that, like, in college football they'd be Boise State, in college basketball they'd be Gonzaga. They're like just out of the elite,
right?
But they're always in there. They're always like they're very good.
They win what they're supposed to win.
Yeah, I mean, they're not FSU. They're not whatever that freak undefeated fake championship team was last year, whatever. But these guys, they're just outside, and they always put up results. But they probably just don't get that, I guess, that level of respect, maybe respect, adoration, whatever of their game. But they're always there.
Is it because of their lack of winning anything really big?
Maybe.
Because I think if you look at the list, George.
Well, here's
Easton's when you're number 2 that much.
I would say Matt has really only been on the scene for the 3 years. Maybe 3 years. Lane even less. So just the fact that you mentioned George and Easton. Easton's been playing since he was a little kid, because I remember he was like 10 years old or 11 years old playing at like Dragon Con or something like that, and George speaks for itself. So maybe part of it is that they're newer, they're not part of like I guess to put another college analogy, they're not part of the Big Six conference, whatever the major conferences, they're like the mid-majors. There you go.
I mean, I would say that they're elite. I mean, if you want to use that word, I mean, I think those guys belong with elite, because the basic criteria I use for that is, I think that you should qualify for 90% plus of the events that you enter. I mean, as far as what the cut is. If you're cutting to 8, you're cutting to 4, whatever, 90% of the time you go, you should at least make that cut. And then about, over half of the times you make the cut, you should be top 4 final match, and then you should be closing those out when you get to the final to get a chance. Then you should be closing those out half the time. And those guys, I think they do that. They very seldom don't qualify. When they do qualify, they're probably 50% or better to be in the top 4, and then they're closing out with wins, 50% from there. And I think if you do that, then you're showing a consistency. You're showing that you're, unless you're playing at the same store over and over against the same people.
That's what I was going to get to. These events that I would see that they're winning, it's, to me, just because I have a different view because I'm out here, and a lot of us are out here. These are regional. They're basically glorified local events, in my opinion.
Yeah,
gone are the days of going to Texas and having like 60 players there from all over the state, the region,
right.
And that actually matters. It matters a big deal. When I went to Kentucky, Owensboro, 67 players for a super cube, just a super cube. You can barely get 20 now.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the wins from those type of things don't, in my opinion, don't they add up eventually, but they don't count in my book as like a major, maybe like a mid-major, but not a major, just because of the amount of people that don't go anymore. Like, you don't see, it's not like a big event where people plan and people fly in anymore.
Right. Yeah, like I said, PJ is probably the really only true coast-to-coast national player that we have. Dan has been close, the last year. He's gone. He went out and played one of your events, and I mean, he's been around. But and PJ's results, I think, are consistent with what I would consider a truly top-tier player. I mean, because he's going all over, he's playing over, and I know maybe 2 events ever that he's missed the cut. I mean, the whole time he's been playing, and when you see,
he won Canadian Nats, right? He won Canadian Nats.
Yeah, that too. And when you get to the top 4 and he's at the event, I mean, he's always there. And that's and he doesn't always close them out, but that's the kind of consistency I would expect would be kind of the limit of what's possible in a dice game. And like I said, I mean, you're the only one, man, that I know that has just went on a consistent streak where and there may have been players, in those huge events, maybe a quarter of the field were lesser players than maybe some of the events now. But you weren't even dropping matches in qualifying during that run, and I think that's what people overlook. You weren't going 2-2 and squeaking in 16th seed and winning out. I mean, you were undefeated in every time. You know what I mean?
Well,
so that's why
big events.
But you know what?
Much bigger events back then.
At the when I was doing it back in 2014 with the guys, 2013, 2014, this was before like teams, before people getting together and practicing, before Rock Online, before any of that. So I think because of that and how we had a structure before everyone else, we were way ahead of the curve. So when we would go, it would almost be easy because these guys have not practiced with everything that how we've practiced. But now I think it's all a lot more level now because everyone's doing it. There are teams everywhere. Back then it was like us and 4 points. That's basically it. I mean, yeah, you guys had Ragnarok, but like you guys didn't really travel, right?
Right. We started kind of late 2014, but we were new. We were brand new,
Exactly. So but I think after 2014 it changed because Phoenix Nest came about, Lucky Dice Stratagem, Pusheen, maybe they've been around, but when it became like, it was more like these guys that just play at the store and then they just happen to go. But now it's like people from like different parts of the country, because of Roll20, people can practice and they could get better. Right. So I think that's part of one of the reasons why. I was so successful back then just because I think, it was like, I guess, it's like, I guess I was like, it was still in the infancy of,
and that was the time
style of play
too, where you were showing up with builds. I mean, you weren't bringing builds that had been established. You were bringing builds that nobody had seen. And I think there were about 3 tournaments in a row there where after you won, then the figures that you played went to the watch list. I mean, that happened like 2 or 3 times. And I don't know if that was kind of a void in their play testing that was allowing that stuff through, and you guys were finding it and bringing it to the tournament. And of course, there weren't podcasts like there are now. People weren't able to see, top players discussing builds and discussing tiers of figures and so forth.
Yeah, agreed, for sure.
I mean, there was a lot of coverage back then because when I was at the other podcast, we used to cover it, but I couldn't talk at the level that you guys were playing at.
There was just no information out there. It's just very hard. That's why, it helped, I think, when I started doing the Apex site for the reports and everything. Then it started to get people to think about what the metagame looked like. Because back then, it was almost a crapshoot because you didn't know. It was the Wild Wild West. Nobody knew what the top were. You just play whatever you want. Right. And then the people who prepared the best and the most, they were the ones who succeeded. But of the list here, is there anyone that was left out, do you feel? And who would you bump out? If you there was someone.
The 2 names again that probably wouldn't be on my list would be Tyler and Jade. Okay. But that's at least in part because I don't have enough knowledge of them. I haven't seen them play, and I don't think they've posted enough results for me to say, okay, yeah, this is somebody that I need to really consider. But I understand that they're good players. I'm in no way trying to say that they're not good players, but I personally just haven't seen enough to get them on there. I think Adam should be higher. I think George should be higher. But again, it's what do you like? It's like the MVP voting or whatever.
Regional bias.
It's kind of. I mean, even with like the MVP in the NBA, it's subjective. Some people say, you need to be the best player on the best team gets the MVP. Right. No, it's the person that if you take them off the team, that they would be the worst without them there. So it's very subjective in that way in terms of, unless you just want to go straight results. If you just want to say, okay, that's the only thing I'm considering, straight results. And then I think the list is, it's. Well, I might change something here and there.
You said you take out Jay and Tyler. Who would you put in? I personally had Paris in there.
Well, see, there's always a bias issue there with me. I mean, I see Paris play. I know how he plays, and I know that a lot of the top players that I've talked to respect his game. I don't think that. I mean, George Masu play test with him quite a bit. I don't think he'd be play testing with him if he, you know what I mean, thought that the kid couldn't play or anything. And I've seen I've seen a lot of stuff from him on the board where I've thought he was going to lose. You know, I've been in a tournament, walked by 20, 30 minutes into the match and just looked at his position and thought, okay, well, he's going to lose. And he manages to really, I think that's one of his strongest areas is he's able to pull games back from the brink where he should lose. You know, he's down on points, his positioning is off, but he's able to come back and win games. And I've seen him do that more consistently than I've seen a lot of other guys, because it seems like there are players that once their first strategy starts going awry, they have no ability to put it back together. They're
adaptation.
Just, they're just done from that point.
All right,
and I think that he's.
Yeah. No, you're right. So you put Paris in there. Who's the other one?
But Paris, honestly, I mean, he hasn't had results in the last year. So even though that I think that he's a quality, I mean, he did. He got the team championships at Rock Cup, which was nice. And I think he was he was top 16, right? And it was a really close game to get to top 8. So he did well, you know. But part of it was we weren't able to travel and play earlier in the year. So it's who else?
I personally, only because now this is like big time bias because I've seen him play and he's from around this area. It would be Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron is one that I always he's a fantastic player and
oh man,
his percentage of wins is really good. I mean, even though he's only played maybe 8 kind of big events over the last 2 or 3 years, I think he's won 6 of them and had a top 4 at the other one. So when he shows up, and he's been one to show that he can adapt to competition, and I'm really interested to see how he does at your event.
I really want to see Aaron. That's one of the things I want to see. I don't know. I wish he did travel because he is a really, really good player.
I mean, because PJ is going to be at your event, Dan's going to be out there, Steve. I mean, it's a small field, but it's definitely quality over quantity, and I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
I actually look at Steve as something that's close to like
he's right up there.
You know, we kind of talked about like the Matt EG stuff like that, where he plays, he wins what he's supposed to win for the most part. I just played him recently. He's a good player. But of course, he's really new on the scene, and that West Coast.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Hopefully, he travels more this year.
You know, one of the I was looking at some of the comments on there, and obviously, there's going to be some bias. But if you're going to look at what, I guess you would go with what sticks in your mind most recently, and most recently are the Rock Cup, the U.S. Cup, Canada Cup, all those, and then like the recent Super Qs and regionals. Now, missing from all that, there's like nothing. Like the farthest west is like Houston, right? And then there's none. There's none in Vegas. No events out in here other than our Open Series, but that's few and far between. We had the U.S. Cup, like I said, but.
And I know Team Vegas, they had like 40 guys playing just a couple of years ago, and there's some of those. Roland is a good player. I mean, they have some good players out there, but I haven't heard anything from them in a year or two now. So.
Also, the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of good players out there. Just me, because they've come to my events and I've seen them play. I've gone up there. Guys like Matt Peterson is really, really strong. Chip Barnett and Dave Ellis, those guys, and Brian Smith. And then from the Brothers Prop guys, Jordan Beers. Those guys are really good. It's just they don't get to go out and outside of their area. So it's hard to, I guess, assess their skill and talent against the rest of the field. But when they have gone out, like when Matt Peterson and Brian Smith have ventured out and come down to my, the regional that we've had, they've made the top 8.
They're from Oregon,
and then the Eagles guys. They're in one group's in Portland, and the other group's like in Seattle. Well, I guess Chehalis, but we'll just say Seattle. But those guys, they've gone to the Rock Cup, they've gone to Worlds, they've played before. It's just it's like in the last year they haven't been really active other than just their local circuit up there and whatever the WizKids Opens that they have, because they don't really do rock events. So because of that, they've kind of been like out of sight, out of mind, just like how it is from the SoCal region, other than Steve and Tony. Right. But I see why they people like them wouldn't be on here. But
and Tony's a good player really too. Good. But Tony builds kind of off the top meta. Usually his builds are kind of maybe second tier-ish sort of builds because he tends to play figures that he likes and so forth. Yeah. I don't know how much.
Or Doctor Strange. That's it.
I don't know how much playtesting time, and that's the thing about Dan that some people I've heard say that as a negative towards him, that he spends so much time playtesting. Oh, and then people say, oh, if I played that much, if I practiced that much, I'd be that good too, which I think is a pretty absurd argument because you can say that about anything, right?
Exactly.
But the fact is, the guy, I think he's a high IQ guy, and he puts hundreds and hundreds of hours into playing those builds. And how many other guys at the tournament are I mean, there are a lot of times now where we're putting in, if we put in 30, 40 hours in play testing, that's a lot for us. And when he's, literally 10 times that, I think he said he put in 300 plus hours play testing that last build he put out.
He also counts the drive back and forth to these events.
Oh, just like as he's thinking about them?
And then also the time that he's playing the team at said Super Q. Whatever, because they're all of that is building up towards the Rock Cup, let's say. So right. He was giving, like the where he's playing the Starro, it's like he's giving that a test run at a Super Q or regional for like 6 rounds. So and then the drive up there and back. So that's let's say it's like 10 hours or 12, whatever. So it's probably not literally just like in the
hours on roll 20.
But if you count it all, it probably is. I mean, you probably physically play 30, 40 hours with Paris, but the amount of time you guys think, and then if you're going to an event actually playing it, it's probably up there,
Right. I think that's also interesting, too, when you said he's testing at Super Qs. You look at probably the top 5, and that a Super Q is them testing a build, where everyone else is trying to win it, and they've tested for it, you know what I mean?
That right there shows how much those events have been devalued, because back in the day, wow, I can't believe that back in the days, like 4 years ago, Super Q was an event that was like to be planned for and to go, and then the regionals were almost like national level events, and the Super and now because of how things are, and there's so many events, people just don't go to them anymore.
But I think, but World should be fun, man. I mean, other than you and Kenny, letting us down, retirement or what you want to call it. I mean, I honestly think everybody else, even like Alex Avila is going to be there.
Oh yes.
And I think Avila is another. He's a fantastic player, man. But he kind of has a refusal to embrace the meta. He hates ID cards. Mm-hmm. He hates special objects. He hates. So he has been very stubborn in embracing the parts of the meta that make the meta what it is. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with. He's been kind of off the scene for 2 or 3 years now. But
are the Rubicon guys still playing?
Some of them. I think that probably about half of them have faded out. But I know he's been playtesting, man. He's excited about going. So I'm interested to see what he's able to do.
Who's your dark horse?
And even I assume Joins is going to be there, right? 2-time champion Joins, because it's that's his hometown. So
it's right there. Yeah.
And another guy that it's hard for me to assess his game because I've played him once in a sealed event. I've seen him play once or twice, but I know that among top players that he tends to be kind of overlooked, or people don't really take him that seriously, but he's a 2-time champion, so I don't know what the state of his game is, though. I don't know if he's playtesting. I don't know if he knows figures. I don't know. But the fact that the guy has won twice and it's his hometown, I mean, you gotta consider these guys,
Who's your dark horse?
Man,
who's if we had good what's the underdog bet here?
Man, I'd have to think about it. I'll throw Alex out there again. I mean, I've always thought he's a really good player, and he seems to be. I mean, he's texted me some builds and giving me an idea of some of the things he's thinking about, and I'm interested to see what he does. I don't know if you'd call Kenji an underdog or a long shot, but I always think Kenji has a chance to win.
Yeah,
and I think that he's they're a fantastic player, and I'm interested to see if somebody comes up with a build that nobody's expecting, that sort of thing. Is somebody going to put something out there that just nobody's seen, nobody knows how to deal with? Because then we get into the question of how much detraction do you put in for just straight net decking. I mean, if their results are good, but the only thing you ever see them playing is what won a month ago or what won 6 weeks ago, and they're just straight taking a team that, okay, that team is obviously good because it wins, and then they're learning to pilot that team themselves, and they're putting it somebody that's bringing something nobody's seen before. Do they get less? I mean, it's that's something that's totally subjective, but interesting what you guys just think about that.
Actually, I have a theory on that because I look at certain teams and you look at like what Tyler has done with it, because he's the one that runs the Whales, right?
Right.
Okay, and then you have what Tom did with that team as well, and I almost wonder if when you take a team that is good, and then you put time and effort and you play test against stuff, but other people don't know it as well. Mm-hmm. You get a little bit of that surprise, a little bit of that gotcha factor. And I almost wonder, like, you give them a lot of credit for doing what they did, but I wonder if other players played against it a few more times or had seen it some more,
figure it out,
if they figure it out or not. Because then you look at the team, then you have the thing where it's like you give less creative points to the people who might grab a team and take it. But when you're already taking something that's known and doing really well with it, and then still beating other players when they're trying to build against it, then to me, that's a skill level right there.
Team building and play. So team building skill versus onboard adaptation skill.
Yes.
Basically, right?
And I think there's two different things. I think a lot of people get more credit for coming up with the new, fun, cool team. They also get that. Yeah. They also have the surprise factor that other people aren't used to.
That's a good point, because Tom gets so much love, so much credit because he played that team, right?
Yeah.
But someone like Matty G, who is the net decker, gets almost no recognition because he's just playing someone else's build. But he's always making the top 4, top 8 finals, whatever.
Yeah, so no, he's shown any
that does count.
He's shown an ability to bring a team that is right for the meta at that time. And whether he's building it with his teammates, he's having the team built for him. When he gets to the tournament and he puts that team on the map, he knows how to run that team. There's no doubt about it. He has it down 100%. But too, like you were talking about Tyler's team, to me, there's a difference between him and Tom's team, because Tom's team, I think, is difficult to deal with, even if you understand how it works. But Tyler's team, once you understand what it does and how it works, I really don't think it's that difficult of a build to deal with. It's just you get in it like falling in a tar pit or whatever. Once you start, and you don't really, now you can ID in Wolverine here and you can retaliate here, and you just get in this morass of you didn't see what was coming, and by the time you figure it out, it's too late. But I think it's the kind of team, if you isolate it and see what it does, it's very difficult for him to initiate any sort of attacks with that team, other than coming over and getting the Quake from the Whales or whatever. But
he's got Mini Shredder on it.
Yeah. I mean, you can ping. I mean, but I just think that it's the surprise factor helped him out a lot more with that team than Tom's team, because again, I think even if you understand exactly what he's trying to do, it's still just a very difficult build to deal with. It's hard to position around, and especially the way he was, being able to maneuver it. So
he does, and then that, we've tested a little bit of the Robo Penguin and stuff like that, and how it works to a point, and it puts you in a really bad position. And in the world of PIM tanks, it also is really hard to hide certain things, small dials, or just getting people off top clicks. You don't get any setup turns. Like, you have to start going.
It has a very Iron Pharaoh Phantom X feel to it.
Exactly.
But the difference is there's a backup for when it breaks down. Whereas before, if they got to Phantom X or if they got to Iron Pharaoh, it's basically done.
Yeah.
Here, if they get to Penguin, that's only 40 points.
right,
so you're like, oh, now my real team can do something. That's kind of like if you can't handle this pawn, then I'm gonna advance and queen at the other, and now I have 2. You lose.
And it's kind of, I think the Pog Swarm team, it's kind of their time right now because Pulse Wave is very limited in the meta right now, and the Hawkeye ID. The Hawkeye ID was the one that was keeping those things down before because you could just call it high kill. You know what I mean? And when there was so much Pulse Wave. But now there's the Iceman ID, there's the Pick a Power figures, there's the Storm ID for the few people that are playing figures of that point value.
Exospecs,
and then there's the Penguins. Exospecs is coming. But then Darwin is going to see. I think once Exospec starts getting on the builds, then people are going to start playing Darwin. I mean,
but you know what?
We also said that before about Darwin, though. No, but I think Exospecs will.
So he takes 1 click. Still get to use the Pulse Wave.
Right.
Yeah, it depends on the figure too, because then if you really think about it, like depending on what they roll, if it's Lockjaw with Exospecs, it's not even really a thing as long as he doesn't roll a 5 or a 6.
He can't be equipped.
He can't be equipped.
Oh, he can't be equipped. Never mind. I'm gonna stop talking now. Who said that?
But those Penguins, because you put so much pressure on your opponent. Like a lot of guys, their team, they want a turn or 2 to set up. Let me equip this object, let me carry over here. But when they create a Penguin, a +1 Penguin, and TK it up and move it on top of you, now it forces you to deal with that, and then you might get retoweled back off of it for trying to get rid of the Penguin. So those builds right now I really like, the ones that you're the core of your team is on the other side of the map, but you're able to push stuff up in your opponent's face turn 1, turn 2, and they have to deal with it, or they're just going to start eating damage.
That investment, it's such a low investment for what you get.
Yeah.
What's your okay, so you were talking about what someone's going to come up with something new, different, unique, whatever for Worlds. Okay, we have Battle World legal now. Any thoughts on what that team might be or comprised of? Strategy type?
To me, that seems like the least meta set that they've put out in a while, for whatever that's worth. I don't know that there's anything game breaking in there. I think people like Sheriff Strange off the bat. I think he has some potential, but I would be surprised if you see him on any kind of build that does anything.
Yeah. Okay. So just I guess we have to disclaimer here, because Exospecs is not legal.
Right.
Worlds and the Proximo Sphere, I think that's going to affect big time the metagame, number one. But also it really makes Sheriff Strange not as viable until it's legal, because his effect where when he hits he takes it away, or does he remove it, or they can't use it, or what? His Pen Blast ability. He does when he hits you.
They can't use it for the turn or something like that. I think that's the one. I'll look it up right now.
You have to double power action to ID.
Well, he has that too. So
that's what it's.
He also has a way to deal with equipment.
No, I'm talking about the Exospecs specifically because ID cards are legal now. So he's a fringe piece at most, in my opinion, for that. But the part where he affects equipment at the 100-point dial. Going forward afterwards, I believe that will be one of the best pieces in the format, because everyone's going to be using Exospecs, including Sheriff Strange, because now it gives him running shot.
But another thing that really hurts that Sheriff Strange is he has Mystics. And right now, Mystics is a terrible thing to have because of the retail. I mean, they can hit you and retail you that turn, you know what I mean? So Mystics is like terrible right now.
When he uses it after resolutions, hit characters can't use or become equipped by equipment until your next turn.
That's pretty good. So
he gets on his first 2, and then he gets on his stop click at the end.
Yeah, that's and if you play him at 100 with Exospecs, he's gonna have running shot with a 12 move, 11 attack damage, pen blast, and prop. But so this is what I've been. With you were talking about the retiles and stuff. Well, I know that it's still they're fringe tactics, but it could work for pieces like him. Pieces like Unseen and Witch Hunter Angela could be good against retaliators because they're either going to get a -2 to their attack or you're going to get a +2 to your defense. It makes it that much harder to hit.
Yeah.
So, as we've seen with Abdul with his Unseen in the final, going all the way to the finals, he really doesn't care about the retails, right?
So, yeah, I mean, you can have Sheriff Strange, Exospecs, and Angela, and you're at 157 point investment, and you counter the top 3.
Exactly.
What do you want to say? Like equipment, whatever the top 3 meta things that your strategy, archetype, short of like certain teams or whatever. So if you now have the rest of your stuff.
Yeah.
I have actually to ask you because you said. Too, that you didn't really see anything too game breaking. When we had Edward on, he was pretty big about Thanos Prime. What do you think about him? Because with the way the keywords work.
Oh yeah. You can get you can theme him with anything basically.
A lot of points, man.
It is a lot of points, and his dial is fairly short for how many points he has. But I like him. We've messed around him in playtesting. I kind of like Agamotto too. I think he's a borderline figure because again, too many points points for the number of clicks you're getting. But if you throw Exospecs on him, then you get the classic combination: running shot, pulse wave, 19 invincible prob. I mean that's it, right? Running shot, pulse wave, prob. That's the skill set you're looking at. With Exospecs,
he's too easy to take down. I still think though.
But yeah, I do agree. Yeah, like 170. Yeah, and I think he's like 8 clicks, something like that. So yeah, the clicks to point ratio is bad.
I don't know. I mean, the one thing that I will say about that Thanos is he's 8 clicks, and he has with Exospecs he has everything you just said as well, short of the 19 defense.
Everything. You could kind of say the same thing about Witch Queen, right?
Yeah, she's another one that I think is borderline.
But she's soft.
Interesting.
She's soft.
Yeah.
Kind of, because she still has Mastermind, so you'd still need to have an Outwitter.
Yeah, but everybody has that. But I mean.
No, it's not that easy right now, right? And also, it's kind of like you say, it's actually harder to deal with than Invincible.
A figure that I think from the Batman animated set that gets no play that I think is an interesting piece is Grey Ghost. I don't know if you've looked at Grey Ghost much, but for 40 points, he does the thing for the POG generations where they can only bring in one at a time. So it really hurts Starro, it really hurts the Walking Wood, but he's so easy to kill, and then he's not really doing anything for your team other than just keeping those POG generations down.
Have you tested it at all?
Yeah, but there are matchups there's matchups where you might as well just be playing a 260 point team where he's going to do nothing for you.
So you're playing him at 40, right? Okay, so we tried him. So we've been playing it here to go up against multiple Groots and stuff. He's exactly what you're saying. At 40 points, he does absolutely nothing because you only get one. But he doesn't do anything. Here, you just dumped 40 points into something that can't really call in anything. He can't attack. Yeah. He doesn't even have to improve movement, and he has stealth. So if he's in hindering, he's gonna have a hard time getting out.
Yeah.
Where he has a little bit more value is at 75 because he has Outwit, Perplex, and he's 75 points, so he can call in some people, and he can be fairly decent at combat, and obviously a deeper dial. But I don't know how effective he could be, at either point value. If he had maybe improved something, maybe, but even then, I think 40 or 75. It's he's one of those pieces that sounded good in theory, and then when you actually tested him and you play him, and you're like, man, I wish I had somebody real.
It says his thing too is that he can whatever's generating the pod can only generate one of that type of pod, right?
So Starro makes one.
So Starro makes one. I mean, it hurts Starro. Yeah, I feel like Starro is its biggest thing that it hurts, and the rest is.
But I think the Robo Penguins they have the same name, so I think you can only make one penguin too, even though they're three different type of penguins. Right. I think they all count for the same name.
Right? Either way, the penguins are usually gonna push to die because you want to make the +1 all the time.
Right.
So they will either gonna die or you're gonna push them to die, and then you just make another one. So
yeah, I don't think it hurts penguin really that much at all from what I've seen from playing against it and what I.
No. It doesn't.
Groot, but I don't think playing 45 points to lose one pog on Groot is really worth it.
Exactly. So yeah, that's but I guess from the new set, maybe Abdul might try Witch Hunter Angela because he was the only one who played Unseen.
Oh right.
So nobody's really given it. I think with the retail teams out there.
The one time I went to a tournament with the full retail setup, the first game I sat down with Scott Johnson playing Unseen and something else, I was like, oh, really? You know what I mean? Really, the first game, the one tournament I bring this to, I'm going to sit down game one and have Unseen sit there.
Isn't that how it always works, though?
That's always for me, man.
Whenever you try to like really push hard on like a certain something, you sit against the at least by round 2, you're just like, really?
Yeah.
The Chase Black Panther, of course, for sealed is fantastic, but I don't think you could do much with it. And unless you just got real lucky with those rollouts, I could see surviving for a win or two, but in sealed, that thing is hard to deal with there for sure.
250? Yeah. Oh yeah. There's almost no way.
I read this tournament report where a guy had put a nice little police theme team together at his sealed at WK. I think he had a Thorus, Ultimate Thor, the Prime She-Hulk, something else, but he ran up in top 4 against Black Panther at 250 and Killmonger at 50, and he said, "There's just nothing I could do, man."
Yep.
That's rough.
That's
man.
so funny. It's exactly what one of the guys played at the R-Wiz Kids Open, but the difference was he'd only played, I think, for like a couple weeks, so it balanced back out.
Oh, oof.
Yeah, we got really. The rest of us got really lucky.
Did you go to a Whiskey's Open? Well,
I did not, man. I did not. There's a sealed one this weekend. I think Paris is going to go, but I'm not sure. There's no constructed ones well, actually, no, there is one, the 24th, I think, out in Baytown. We may try to go. That's the weekend before we're leaving for World, so I'm not sure. Probably 50-50.
Gotta get some practice, man.
Yeah, no, I need to, man.
So you're telling
me.
But
I've always.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, in terms of me doing the rankings, for whatever it's worth, I've always said that I'm a strictly average player. I like to joke around that I'm either the best terrible player in the world or I'm the worst good player in the world. Because, when I'm going to, if it's a 4-round, I'm going to go 2-2 and probably miss the cut by 2 spots. That's just my
you always
thing,
play something. You always play something funky.
I usually play something just. I don't think I have brought a couple of garbage teams. I can't deny that either. But usually, I think my teams they're kind of B tier teams. They're teams that really probably aren't quite good enough. You know what I mean? But I have a lot of fun, man. But even though I do the rankings, and I honestly try to be as objective as I can about them. But I certainly, for those out there that want to say that I'm not a good player, I'll admit that I'm not. So we can just get that. Out there,
but you have a good eye though. Just like
I'm good with the macro. I'm good with the macro on the game. On the board, it just my mind's a little too slow because I'm trying to factor in every possible thing. So it's like a file loading, 10%, 20%. I only get to about 40%. And I'm okay. So I've just got to do something before I've thought through all my options because I'm maybe like Ed, I think is like that. But Ed gets much better results. But I think Ed is always trying to find the perfect play. Yeah, Ed Berg was he. I think he's looking for every possible thing and then trying to tier what's the best thing I can do, and that's the way I approach the game. But I just in the time that I have, I have to just rush to a decision before, or I'm going to be stalling. You know what I mean? So I have to play a little quicker. My mind just isn't quite quick enough to go through all the iterations that I need to. But I have a lot of fun, man.
Recently there was a transplant from California that moved to your neck of the woods. Alan Mason.
I have yet to hook up with him down here, man. But yeah, I think he helps out the scene, man. That's another guy, a name from the past, right?
Yes.
That if you go to the time before the inception of The Rock, he was a top 5 all time, right?
I mean, he was like I was telling. I don't know, Chase. You know who Alan is?
You've talked to him about him before.
Yeah, he's
he's like a legend there.
Yeah, he's back from 02 to like 06, 07. It's like him, Scott Crampton, or him, or Rob Barazal. Ooh, I can't.
Oh, Rob, right?
Can't disrespect that one. Those are the 3 guys, in my opinion, were before the NECA. Those were the 3. They were like synonymous with Wizard World. Like,
and Alan got a top 8 at Worlds last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
he was also the first California State rock champion.
And I know he's going to Worlds this year, so that's another name to consider.
He's always in our Open Series, the one that Steve DiCarlo won. He was in the finals with him, so he was like that close to being the representative of that event. But he's a top guy, and he's now in your area. He'll be playing against Dustin and Micah and them. Ooh, that should be some epic battles, man.
Yeah, and Micah's another. I mean, he. I've only seen him play one build. Anytime I've ever seen him, he's played shredders, and I'm always a little hesitant to give too much credit to guys that I've seen have success with one build. You know what I mean? Because until they can show, and I don't mean to take anything away from what he's done, because he has the positioning on the shredders down. I played him. He beat me. I mean, I like the way he plays that team, but I have to see, and I think the majors were like that too. Every time it's just shredders, and it does. Some people think that that's a build that doesn't take a lot of skill to play, but I think that's absolutely wrong. I think to maximize what it does, you do have to position really well, and you have to understand exactly how much life you have in those figures, and when to push, when not to push. I think it's a more difficult team to play than people want to generally give it credit for, but I would still like to see him play something else before I'm on board with.
Yeah, but not having to roll dice though.
Oh, the old jittery.
I mean that's the
Jake Williams special.
Yeah, that's part of the thing in the game though, is knowing your probabilities, knowing when you should attack this and attack that. When things like that right there, that's another skill in itself. So when you take that out, it's hard to see if they actually know that portion of the game.
Right.
So I guess you would see how they play in sealed.
Right.
If they've got if they're also that good. But but you're right though. If you see someone only play one specific way, it's hard to really assess their skill, right? Unless you see something else. Now, Jay Major usually plays shredders. Jalen, his son, he plays a bunch of different stuff.
Oh, okay.
And he's really good. He's played Unimind. He's played Doc Ock. He's played what other teams? Like, he obviously played shredders, but he's played. I would say he's played all the top archetypes in a format.
Right.
So maybe he doesn't come with something completely original on his own, but he does try all the archetypes of the format. So that gives you a better, I guess, a better picture of his skill level.
And that's
he's another one of those young kids,
And that's something you can give Matt Griccionis credit for too, because even though he isn't building those teams, he has showed up with teams that play all different kind of ways. He's had teams that go hard forward. He has teams that sit in the back. He has teams that he does bring a variety of.
So
teams.
that is a skill. That is like a very and that's what you were saying, Chase. That's like that is a skill, like a big time to be able to adapt and play that level, high level. Now if you read some of those comments on the rankings, one of the ones that and you brought it up, and to me it was like it's the same. It was I feel the same way when they say, well, if I put in that much time, I'd be really good. Like
didn't he make that comment?
He specifically made that comment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, you're shooting yourself in the foot there, you know, because like I believe that when people do that, not only is that a humble brag, but it also shows kind of like your work ethic in the highest level. And if you can't, and maybe if you put in just a little bit more effort into it, you could win the whole thing.
But there are a lot of people saying that about Isaac when he won. I remember a lot of people saying, "Oh, you know, if I was 12 years old and didn't have a job and just could play Heroclix all day, you know, that sort of thing." I mean, people always
he goes to school and he has to listen to his parents. I mean, like, that doesn't work that way.
But there were a bunch of comments about that when he
no, you're right.
That his lack of adult responsibility allowed him this time. But that kid, the first time I met Isaac was with Nationals, I guess 2014, 2015, and what I was impressed, we were playing a sealed, like a BR, a team BR format. It was me and Paris against him and Scott Crampton. And Isaac knew all the dials of all the things. And he was telling Scott, you know, oh, no, actually, just wait and let me attack him because you only have 3 damage, so you're going to leave him on his last click. So just let me do it, and then I can get all the way through. So he was telling Crampton on what to do because he knew the dials and Scott didn't. So, you know, that's preparation. And that's, you know, and just having that knowledge.
Like, now, what about when he's playing in powers and everything? And I was like, it just blew my mind.
Now we were the whole, you know, like, you know, if I could have done this, or if I was like that, if I had the opportunity, whatever, then I'd be that good. Like, you know, we have that argument. Now with the people, let's say from the Pacific Northwest, or the people who are really good, but they can't travel, like Aaron. Now that's I was reading Edwards, one of his takes on it, where he was saying, well, that's not our fault if you can't make it, but these guys can, you know, it's we like, you can't just say just because you didn't go or you couldn't go, that even though you're really good, that should put an asterisk on the top list, let's say, because, well, these guys didn't go. Well, I kind of agree with him in that sense that, well, you know, these are the people that are going. You know, like, I think we've had this.
You can't win anything if you don't show up.
Exactly, like how you're like, you know, the best players, some guy playing at the kitchen table with their friends, they just don't get to go. It's like, well, if you don't have a way to do that, then it's still like you can't really make that argument because you aren't actually there to prove it.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the whole point right there, is you can't prove it. Because is there somebody in their basement that's never played a tournament that's the best player? It's possible, but there might be somebody in a Shaolin temple that could win the UFC if they, you know what I mean, that nobody's seen them. But you can say there might be, but but with Aaron, you know, it's a little bit because he has posted results, and on the occasions when he does get to go to play, he has posted really good results. But it's just that he doesn't get a chance to show what he can do very often. But you can't, you know, it's hard. It's just hard to fit players in there like that with just so fewer opportunities than other players have.
You know, in Magic the Gathering, they did this a long time ago when they used to do their qualifiers. You used to just get the invite, kind of like how they do now, right? For WizKids, you get the invite, and then you have the chance to go to Worlds. And then you just pay for your way. Well, there were a lot of people who couldn't afford it, or they just couldn't find the time or whatever. Then I forget what year it was, but they changed the entire system of their qualifying system. And what happened was they said, okay, and it was kind of similar arguments, like, well, these people can't go. They're winning, but they can't go because from one reason or another. So they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. If you go to these qualifiers and you win, we will book your flight and your hotel. So there is no excuse for you anymore, right? So then that changed the whole dynamic. Well, there's this guy, his name is Paulo Vitor Damadorosa, okay? He was one of those guys when he's from Brazil. He was one of those guys in, I want to say, early college years, or like, I want to say early college or or late teens. He couldn't go because of the money issue or whatever. Well, but he was winning everything. So he won one, and then he got to go to the Pro Tour, and then he got on the gravy train, and you get money, you get the invites, they pay for you, whatever, blah, blah. Fast forward 10 years later, he's in the Hall of Fame for Magic, and he's like one of the premier commentators on the Magic Pro Tour, one of the best players ever to play the game. And that happened. We would never have gotten to see him if that change didn't happen. So for Heroclix to, I don't know, it's way different because Magic, they give out hundreds and thousands of dollars for each event, their Pro Tour. But if Heroclix ever got to that point to where you got to pay for them to go, then you'd actually have a better argument for these to find out who the actual best players are. And our Open Series kind of tried to mimic that, but it was kind of like, okay, we have a $150 travel voucher for you to show up, and then there's more monetary value for you guys to play for. So in our event, we're going to have 8 out of 10 people that have confirmed that are coming. So that's pretty good considering that it's a small sample, but it's a small amount, but it's also a way to figure out who actually is the best. And so
it is interesting.
Yeah.
Too, I mean, you mentioned Brazil. I mean, there's Thiago and Pedro, right? I mean, they're right in that boat. I mean, we know those guys are good, but how good are they really? And it's hard to say. I mean,
if they can't get over here, we'll never find out.
Yeah, and from anybody that's been on the podcast, Pedro is actually probably one of the people that's impressed me the most about how quick he is with everything. Like, I couldn't even get a word in with him and Pat because there was nothing to say because they're just so quick, and the way they're talking and thinking and everything. I was just sat there blown away. Like Pedro's the way his mind goes with Heroclix, it's something else.
And they get some tournaments out there
over here playing.
They get tournaments with big turnouts. I think they've had tournaments with 100 people or whatever, and he's come through consistently out there. So,
and that's a thing too. If you have a few top players like that, and they are good players. I mean, Pat, you've played. Have you ever really got to play against or watched them play?
Yeah, I mean, I played against Thiago when we've tested. He is amazing. I've seen Pedro play when he basically dismantled Ryan Roberts. But they both made it to the cut last year. It's kind of hard because everyone was playing Unimind last year, so it was kind of hard to really differentiate because they all played similar. They all play similarly because Unimind is kind of how you played it back last year was basically the same all the way up and down. It's just what is your ID calling at the time?
Yeah. So that's one of those things too that it also, I mean, they're having big turnouts at their events. Obviously they don't have a ton of events, so people are prepping for these events. I mean, in my mind, and then when you have people playing at the level that they have, that means everyone else is still going to have to rise to the occasion. I mean, they're going to keep getting better. That's how these metas and everything conform, and I have a feeling that their meta in general down there, even though it might be behind because of pieces, but from an actual player perspective, I think it's probably a lot better than any of us realize.
Yeah, I think this is what I don't know how we can ever do this, but I would love to do some kind of like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter or something where we can get like money to pool. Let's say the top, like a true invitational, where we fly out the top 10, 12 guys, and then we do kind of like what I'm doing at our invitational, where we have like multiple formats and whatever. But this time we'll go with the actual aggregate top players. I don't know how we would ever do that, but it would be awesome.
Oh gosh, the crying for whoever didn't quite make it.
Now what about this? Okay, so there's the like the college football style, the MMA rankings, boxing style. That is purely subjective. Now, what if we did it ATP style and the golf style, where it's points,
right?
Each thing. Then it becomes objective. Of course, the other people will be like, well, these guys can't go to these events, or there aren't.
Well, what I would like to see then, I would like to see something like this is let's say how many, whatever you decide the amount is for the invitational in total, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have what you're saying, and then you also do have a voted in type of thing as well. There's different sports for all-stars games that do stuff like that. You know, you have votes, and then you have the media and the fans, different things like that. And
the old BCS for football did, right? They had the coaches poll, they had the AP poll, whatever, and then they had an actual computer poll where it was just points. I guess we'd have to figure out how to do the actual objective part where it's just points for each finish based off of how many players, correct? So like if you had under 15 players, this is the max points you can get for winning. And if you have 16 to 24, 25, you get this many, and then so forth, so that it's going to be scaled up, and then it's going to give you points from winning first, second, third, or fourth, all the way up to like if there's 100 people, like top 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
would
guess,
love to do that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how we would ever. Maybe someone listening can do this, can do some kind of formula. Also, have the Associated Press poll, which would be all the the podcasters and stuff, and then in there they have the coaches poll. So I guess here would be the player poll, where we'd have to just poll everybody from the. Man, that's really hard.
It is hard. Well, and I mean, another thing too is there could be automatic, just almost like how they're doing qualifiers for Worlds, stuff like that. There's automatic like qualifications, like did you win one of the top 4 events of the year? You know what I mean? Or was there there's two qualifiers for it as well that we hold throughout the country or whatever. I don't know. I think that would be pretty cool.
But the voting thing, it would be more like we'd have to assign regions. And then 1 or 2 people from each region represents that region. God, what are you talking about? Politics? That's what it is, though, right? Like you take the 2 guys from the Pacific Northwest, and they pull their whole area, and then they come back with their top 10, and then the SoCal region would be like me and you, and then we'd pull our whole area, and then we'd submit it, and then so forth. Maybe there's like 6, 7, 8, or whatever, however many. And then that could be the player poll, and then there's the actual point system poll, and then Will's poll, because I think to me your poll is like the most legit one.
But when I started, but it was 2014, 2015, I guess, when I put the first one up, and I was searching top Heroclix players, looking for lists, and I just couldn't find any one that anybody had ever did. So I just I'd heard some discussion about this guy's the best, but as far as any type of top 10 ranking, which you can find for virtually every game that's out there, if you start looking there one. So I just figured, well, I'll just put one up on Realms and just see. Well, let me just because I had been traveling for a couple of years. I've been to Worlds. I've been for 5 years in a row now. I've been to Nats. I've been to a lot of those early rock events, and I felt like I had seen all these guys. I'd played against all these guys. I'd seen all these guys, and I felt like that I'm as good as anybody to throw one out there. And it was really never to say I'm right. This is the list. It was just, this is my list. Let's get a discussion started. And what's yours? So, I mean, I don't have any problem with Lane throwing his out there. I know Lane's always felt like and not that he cared per se, but I know that he felt like he should have been on my list going back months, you know what I mean? And he did finally.
You're not on the list, you just make your own.
Do you remember, like, in one of the early ones, if you go back to one of the Facebook comments, Matty G wrote, my goal by the end of the year is to make your top 10 list. Do you remember reading that?
Right. And he was one who would come up to me at all events. I'm going to get on that list, man. I'm going to get on this list.
But that's cool, though. That's awesome. He did.
And I tell him when he was making that run at Worlds 2 years ago, I told him, I said, man, if you win one more game, there's no way I can keep you off, Matt. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
One win away, and then you're gonna, you force my hand. I can't do anything about it at that point. Yeah. So I like the people that take it with it. I mean, it's never anything meant to be cast in stone or anything to be taken too seriously. But it's fun to me. I like the people that take it with the sense of fun that I put it out there with, and. I think some of the people off the last list, I know there are people saying that the WizKids top 10 is more legit. That's just from the
win?
Yeah, the win list.
Oh my god!
Here's this list is more legitimate than your list, but those take into account formats that really have nothing to do. I mean, it's cool that people play, let's 500 points, one colossal, 3 people have to wear hats, one guy has to be holding a lightning bolt, and you start out with an action token on every other figure. I mean, it's cool if you want to play that. You know what I mean? It's all good, but it just doesn't.
Even right now.
It doesn't really.
Even right now.
I want to know who has actually tried to give that.
It was one of those guys from Dallas. One of the.
That's just a horrible. That's just a. I mean.
One of Cedar's boys, I think. Had put that up. He put the top 10 in the win. This is a lot more legitimate list than this or whatever.
I could literally go on there, and as long as the store let me, I could just make whatever I want.
Exactly. You can. You absolutely can make fake tournaments if you want.
Yeah, and I'm sure
I could be the best player on there next month. It wouldn't even be that hard.
Yeah, all you have to do is coordinate with like all the different stores in your area and say, hey, just make one and put me as a winner. That's how much of a joke this is.
Yeah.
With that being said, Steve DiCarlo's number 2.
Is he really?
Steve is number 2, dude. I can't wait.
There you go. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, those are good players.
Him a lot this episode. He had to get a little bit.
I've seen PJ up there on that list too. I think that's the last time I looked at it. The PJ was like 3rd or 4th or something. So I mean, there are legit players on there, but I just as far as here's the top 10. I mean, totally different criteria than what I'm looking at. But.
Dude, that's so funny. Yeah, these it would be cool if they can actually somehow make that into something legit, because then that would legitimize the actual system.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, but from what it sounds like too, when Howard was talking about whatever the Rock is, I don't know. I'm still keep calling it the Rock, I guess. He's talking about the holding the points. He's just going to still keep it on a spreadsheet, right? So and that's what I would have loved to see, is something that would have adapted into the win.
Yeah, I'm still interested in seeing how all the details play out at the Rock WizKids merger, whatever it is. I mean, I know he made the announcement. I've heard nothing since, but I'm just really interested to see how exactly.
Well, I see he already changed on the Rock page. He changed the kits already, so they're already up to date. Yeah.
My biggest fear about it is that it's going to make Rock Cup just, another event. I mean, I know he's saying you can get points to qualify by winning Rock Cup, but right now, if you win a WKO, you get entry into Worlds. So it's essentially going to be no bigger than a WKO, and for a lot of us, that's been one of the 3 biggest events of the year.
Yeah.
So I mean, once that big cash prize is gone, and I know a lot of players would rather win that $4,000 than have the official world champion tag and the prize kit. To me, I would rather be a world champion. I'd rather win the legit WizKids World Championship. I mean, if it was me personally, but I know there are a lot of people out there that cash prize is one of the main motivations they have for staying focused and engaged and trying to hit that jackpot every year. So I hate to see that go. But you
have a lot. It's a lot of the same concerns that a lot of players who are on the circuit have. So,
and I know another thing too is with Worlds and too. Like I've never seen the same issues that Worlds has had with like the same build, like Worlds or Nationals, where you see the same build everyone's playing. For some reason, the Rock Cup doesn't have that same issue. You actually see diverse builds and stuff like that. I don't remember how it was last year with the Rock Cup, but there's always, I don't know, just the competition to me seems better.
I think that I would say at Worlds you get the bottom 40 players don't exist at the more players you're getting at Worlds, the quality of the field isn't any better. If you're at Rock Cup, you're getting 90 players, and at Worlds, you're getting 150. Well, those other 60 you're getting at Worlds, they're not adding anything to the quality of the field, per se. So
it's just padding stats, man.
Yeah.
Padding stats.
All right.
Guys. Right. Hold on, all right? I'll just be back.
Guess maybe I'll edit that part out. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I don't know. I really do believe that when I look at the Rock Cup I actually look at it from a competitive standpoint better than Worlds. Worlds is a little bit more prestigious. Like you said, like you'd rather win Worlds, but I don't know. I actually, when I see who wins the Rock Cup, I'm like, that's to me usually a better qualification of the better player.
Well, for whatever this is worth, too, at Rock Cup and Worlds, in the main draw, I've very seldom encountered dinky, and I have on an occasion, but as far as, dinky players, people trying to rules law you over nonsense, the people that don't go, I think, have a real slanted view of, oh, those guys are just there to make money. They're all a bunch of top competitive a-holes. But honestly, when I play the side events at Worlds, there's a lot more of that stuff going on in those little mini side events. That's where all
why
the
they're
nonsense
not top
happens.
players.
But
That's what it is. That's why they're
in the main
not.
draw. You go over there and it's supposed to be like a fun mini event. They're all built up. They're all, or they don't know the rules. They're just keep trying to do stuff. No, you can't do that.
This is their World Cup.
But I've always, for whatever that's worth,
try hard.
The bigger the tournaments are, the more luck I've had of just of sitting down with people that know what they're doing. They're friendly. Let's play this game and get on, as opposed to
and that's exactly what it is. But this because most of those people who are playing this, they put time and effort in. They also realize that there's still a social aspect. They're gonna see these people again. There's all this stuff. There's kind of like this world. Like I've had some, like just like you said, I've had like when we went to WizKids Open in San Diego, I'm literally some of the worst people playing BRs that day. And then I sat down and played Pat. Listen. I only played him once, and we sat down and played Pat, and Pat was actually the chillest of everybody that we played all day. And I was even like, oh shoot, that's Pat.
Even though, well, let me tell you this: they tried a 3-on-1 and I still won because they didn't know how to play BRs correctly.
I didn't. None of us did. This is the first time really going down and playing. And
they thought
I was waiting for once you and Nick went at it. I was just waiting for some cheap points to find, and that's all I was trying to do.
Oh yeah, dude.
I don't know if you know the reputation of Pat and Majestic had as the Cobra Kai of Heroclix when they first came out there a few years back, because a lot of people didn't know them, and a lot of those guys were East Coast guys, and they had known each other for years, and Pat brought his crew out there from California, and it was like, since they didn't know him, and Pat can be kind of stoic if he doesn't know you, he got this reputation of, they're just here to sweep the leg, man. Those guys, watch out, those guys are hard. And so a lot of those early guys that knew of Majestic just by reputation were like, man, you got to watch out for those guys. And I know Pat does have a killer instinct. I'm not trying to take that away from him either, but I've never seen, you take the list. I've never really seen any of those players just really. Matt has a tendency to get a little slanted on the board. I think he's done better at that. Lane has. But I think that they've both got better at that as time has gone by. Because I've seen Lane be totally chill too. And
nature. That's what I look at it. I don't think they do anything like underhanded. They're just like they want to win. They want to make sure things are done right. So,
Gotcha.
But almost all those guys on Lane's list or my list, any of those names, if you sit down with any of those guys, you're gonna get a respectful game. You're gonna have a fun game.
For sure. Isn't that ironic, right? It's supposed to be the opposite.
Well, that's what everyone who doesn't play competitively says.
Yeah. Do people? Okay, when you guys go to the WizKids Opens, when they have like the locals come in, and maybe playing the BRs or maybe even in the main event, do you see them being like the jerks or whatever?
But my worst is BRs at Worlds are always where I always get one of the four guys that's just like a total a-hole for whatever reason. There's always one guy in my group that's just trying to, just surly, just sour attitude, like they don't want to be there, just like, okay, I'll just move over here. And it's like, well, I don't understand. What is it? Are you're just trying to farm LEs, and that's the only thing you're doing? And but I always have bad luck at Worlds with getting people in BRs, man, that just don't seem to be participating with the same spirit of fun that I'm there to play. Oh, yeah. But it is ironic, that the higher level, it's you think from the outside looking in that it would go the opposite direction. But my personal experience, for whatever that's worth, has been the opposite. So
you know what? Maybe what soured him in the beginning. Okay, so Chase, when I met Will, we were math buddies back in 2013. Right. Where you back then you used to sit in front of somebody and then they would verify your list to make sure the points are right and your team is legal. And then you signed it. You both signed it in the front and the back. And then if it's wrong or something's off, you both get DQ'd. All right.
So even if they found it like third round, yes. They would they would DQ your math buddy for verifying your sheet. Right?
And then but back then, like the judge was like, you know, this military guy that's like a drill sergeant that's like yelling at everybody. And if you didn't get it right, then he just DQ'd everybody. So if you're like a casual person and the BR's looking and you're like, Jesus Christ, what are they doing over there? It's like boot camp, you know? And then I just remember, do you remember, Will, when they DQ'd like the whole back two rows?
They took,
He didn't have a microphone or a megaphone. So he was yelling, and it's a convention. It's Gen Con. It's loud. Well, the whole back two rows didn't hear anything about what he was saying. So when they went to go collect the sheets, none of the sheets were signed. None of them were verified. And he DQ'd all of them. And Howard was one of them. And he threw a fit. And he made a big stink about it. And then they like reinstated everybody. But I remember going, holy crap, what's going on? It's like this huge. Everybody wanted their money back because of this, and then, you know,
I would have been furious.
And they're like, oh shit, we don't want to refund everybody. Hey, you know, so the judge is like, hey, just let them all back in. But he was actually excited. He goes, yeah, I got like 13% of the people DQ'd. Like, yeah. He was like excited. I was like, no, that's not good.
Even after
you don't want people DQ'd. You want people in the tournament.
He tried to, or said he was going to disqualify Paris and Ronnie that year in a separate event because they were just watching a game, and it was a kid playing, a younger kid, and he just looked up and asked, oh, can I do this? And they didn't say anything. They just kind of looked at him or looking at the board, and he ran over there. No, you can't talk to them like that. You're both out. You're both, bring me your sheets. You're both gone. You're both gone. And they're like, oh, we didn't say anything. We didn't say anything, dude. He asked us a question, but we didn't respond.
And he
okay, and he let him back in. Yeah, but he had already asked him for their sheets and told them they were out.
See, I mean, that is probably exactly what it is. I mean, if that's your first few times, like, I'm going to go to Worlds. This is going to be fun. I'm going to see if I'm really good. And then you got that dude DQing everybody left and right.
Oh my God, it was crazy.
You walk in with your backpack, you see it, you just walk right back out.
Oh my God, it really was. I was like, dude, this is crazy. I just remember just like the whole back, just like it was like a riot. Like 2 rows of like, you know, 10 seats on each side. So 20, probably like 40 people. Just like in the final live two. You know, remember, keep in mind, there's like 100, probably like 150, 160 players playing in this qualifier. And they just all got DQ'd. So, and I think I'm pretty sure they all got like reinstated back in. They gave them time to like fill it out correctly or whatever. But, oh man, that was, those were the days, man. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Dude, that's just.
I mean, that was literally
Are you gonna say his name?
He doesn't work there anymore, so I guess it was Brian Rupp, Necromagus.
I actually never heard you talk about him.
Never heard him? Yeah, Will knows very well what happened with him and Kevin. Good Lord.
Oh, was that the one that?
That was the one. And do you remember, Will, when he came over and he was like, oh, you guys are all wearing their shirts. You're all going to be DQ'd if you keep up with this shit. We're like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, that was the thing about it. He kept trying to implicate you somehow, but you were 3 tables over. And you're like, well, you're wearing the same shirt, though.
Yeah.
Like, well,
yeah. I mean, like, it was like me. So Chris Flores and I just finished our game, so we were talking it over. And like you and Paris, you guys were like you were sitting like right behind, right? And then, you know, then Kevin comes over and Ryan comes over, and then he comes over and he's like tries to DQ all of us, and we're like, wait, like what? And it was because of like collusion, because of like the points, right? And I'm thinking, wait, I won 50-0. How the hell am I getting in trouble for this? I need to win my next round to make it to the cut, because if I lose, I don't get in, because I literally won 50-0. So I was like, I know he ain't talking about colluding on points here, because I scored 50 points. Get out of here, you know. So. You know, but that was a whole thing.
But I was so new at that point. I mean, I'd been playing since the game first came out, but just so casually at home. But the Worlds that year, 2013, that was the second tournament period I'd ever played in my life. And I had the power. I didn't even know the powers. I'd be like, oh, yeah, orange on toughness. Yeah, I literally had the power card in my lap. I looked stuff up when I was playing. I had no idea, man. I just went pretty much just to take Paris and have a vacation. And I had no idea what the meta was. I had no idea what the scene was. But
well, you did
yeah,
some of people you didn't get DQ'd, so that's good.
Yeah, no, man.
I mean, following instructions is that's a good trait to have.
But he was much more casual the next year for whatever.
Oh, for sure, because he had that feedback from 2013. Right, probably Howard gave him an earful.
I'm sure.
But yeah, for sure, 2014 was much better. I mean, it was obviously a good year, but I mean, that style of judging obviously cannot sustain for that kind of level, because you got to be professional, not like we're not like recruits, we're not students, so
yeah, there's a lack of sometimes when I go to events where I'm like, dude, I am an adult. If you talk to me like that one more time, I
exactly,
swear, I'm gonna suffocate you with this comic that's right next to me. Yeah. Anyway, is there anything else you guys wanted to get into?
No, man, that was it. Just
that's it. But I will have a new list I'm working on now. I'll be up probably the week before Worlds, and I'll probably do a 15 like that too. I'll probably list Howard is you'll be just straight to 10.
10 and then honorable mentions like you did before.
Don't because of Clixed Off.
You've done 10.
No, but I've done 15 before. Last year at Worlds I did 15.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, just do 10 and do honorable mentions. How's that?
Okay, but I'm really going to do it. I mean, again, results. But when I do list for a specific tournament like that, I'm looking at the top 8. I'm essentially trying to predict the top 8. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think the last time I had five of my 10 were in the top 8, and I think the one before that it was 6 out of. So I'm usually hitting, most of the guys in there. But it's so hard too because the people on the list will start cannibalizing themselves, because PJ and Ed will meet in top 16. So only one can go forward. So I think there are maybe only 2 that weren't eliminated by somebody else that was on the list. So you know what I mean. So I'll do what I can to. But again, I'm it's hard to not envision Dan in that top spot, because I think that even the people that'll say I'm better than Dan, I'm going to beat Dan, I think that there's very few people that say that he's not the man to beat right now, that he's not the guy with the bullseye on his back, he's not the guy people are looking to take down. And if that's the case, it's hard not to say the guy's the number 1 player right now.
Yeah, I don't see how you can. And if you would like to check out Will's article, you can check it out at MajestixCCG.com. Become an Apex Predator.
Insider.
Oh, sorry. Apex Insider. Can I mulligan that one? No? What recent articles went up this week? I can't think of all of a sudden. I've actually been kind of busy.
Just there was a recent one on a Witch Queen build from AJ.
Saw that one.
And then there was like a player pass with Paris and Dan. If you should play Green Lantern on the main force, the Trouble Alert.
No.
Yeah,
I like that. I read through that one. That was actually really good.
Yeah.
It made really good points from where 2 people look at it from a competitive standpoint. And it's just so funny how anytime you hear people talk about like, this is really good, and somebody goes, it's not, and you see breaking down every little thing.
I'm surprised it hadn't got any play, because, I mean, the TK pieces, they're always 25 points, and he's 30, and he does a whole lot more than what your standard TK pieces can do. So it is strange that he gets no play.
I've seen actually, you actually played against one, Chase, remember? He played in Arizona. The guy played actual Green Lantern.
Oh, yeah. I did.
Yeah. Yep. So I've seen it once. So that guy was thinking about it. Obviously.
The funny thing is I didn't realize which one it was when I first saw it, because I hadn't seen the actual sculpt yet, and there's just been so many Green Lanterns, and I was out during that time when they all came out, so I didn't know all the sculpts, and then all of a sudden it started, and I was like, oh, it's a Trouble Alert. But it was like my 3rd turn before I realized what it was.
I've had those trouble alerts on my sideboard for playtesting for months. I've yet to bring one in ever. Oh, yeah. I've never brought one in. I just keep looking at them there on my sideboard, and I've never managed to bring one.
That means you don't miss.
Yeah. Well, the one time I was playing Goblin King, I crit missed against a Goblin King. Well, I was like, well, I can't just bring one in to die, and then I'm just going
to. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's actually really great to meet you. I haven't had ever a chance to really meet you and stuff like that.
Finally, you're on.
Yeah,
absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
When we see each other again, we'll make sure that it's during when UFC's on ESPN and we can watch it.
Right.
All right, man. Well, Pat, finish this out.
All right, guys. There's a WizKids Open events this weekend, sealed or constructed, but either way, when in doubt, perplex the attack.